Welcome to March Malcontent 2024. Let's get into this first match while I kind of go over business items. So yes, we're doing this again, believe it or not, although this episode's probably going to come out pretty late in the month, so that's going to be fun to sort through. We've got a bunch of new competitors this year, especially helped by the fact that the Nintendo store basically put just a whole bunch of amiibo on sale. I already had most of them, but I've been able to pick up most of the DLC drops as they've happened. I've already gone through the numbers of, wow, that was actually a pretty quick kill. Good landing read by Kirby. Landing punish, I should say. So I've already gone through the math of how many fights we're going to have to do. It's even more this year because we have even more people to eliminate. Ness gets a bye because he won last year and it made the math easier. Other than that, I hope you just enjoy a whole bunch of Smash Bros. That's what we're here for. Watching AI opponents beat each other up. We're on the Bridge of Eldin, which is a stage that doesn't have any exposed pits on the sides, so recoveries are pretty irrelevant. It does also mean that you want to be a heavier character, since the only thing you're worried about is if you're getting launched off the side of the screen or not. Granted, when you play this close to the side of the screen, it kind of changes everything about that. So, you can, in fact, get killed at like 10% if you're just camping out by the side of the screen. One thing to especially watch out for is actually Pikachu's back throw, believe it or not, because when Pikachu does a back throw, he does like 3 backwards somersaults and then throws you, which means that even if you're at 0%, you're losing like 15 feet, and then you're getting thrown off screen and then you die. So, for this first round, I guess one thing you should know is that everyone who wins this first round gets to make it into the tournament. The tournament, April Anger, in case you somehow got here without knowing about it, which statistically I guess would be from my dancing cat video. Tournament has 64 slots. We didn't have enough people for 128. I guess Kirby Classic's going to be making it through. So now there's 62 spots remaining. And I'll see you next match. And next up we have Diddy against Banjo. Or I guess Diddy Kong against Banjo and Kazooie if they're gonna pretend like they're a child in trouble. Other things to know this year is that the stage list has been expanded from years previous. Mostly in the qualifiers though, in the actual tournament we will be using a much stricter... What are they doing? They seem to have broken, and Diddy Kong has killed himself. Alright, that is not a good sign for any success in this tournament, and Banjo blew himself up with a grenade. Alright. They're not really showing off their competency. Especially because when you fight these as a human, they're actually pretty brutal to go against. It's not as bad if you happen to be using spirits. Of course, you could say that spirits kind of make any matchup easier, especially if you pick them instead of just going with the generic one. That is something that I guess I should talk about, because I do every year. These amiibo are specifically designed to be able to take out humans, but I just think it's fun to have them fight each other. So they have balanced stats, which means that they're not going to be doing more or less, and they seem to have broken again. Oh, they're probably expecting cars to come down, because this is the hazardless version. Huh. I might have to take this stage off of the rotation if this keeps happening. Anyways, they deal and receive the same amount of damage. Every single amiibo has the same stat spread, and also they all have auto heal. The idea is that when you're human, it makes it even harder to kill them, because if you like try to camp them out, they'll heal off the damage. Honestly, if you have combos that get too long, they start to heal some of the damage, and with their high defense compared to a human without spirits, they take significantly less damage, making the auto heal even more effective. and then they'll do a smash attack and hit you for like 35. So, the amiibo against human matchup is pretty good. Some of these amiibo do suffer, so I've tried to train them all to be effective, but some of the amiibo just have better AI, because that's how Nintendo programmed them. Usually the ones that suffer are the characters who didn't port over well from Smash 4. It's public knowledge that Smash Ultimate started with Smash 4 as the base for it, so they got to transfer a lot of things over, and that's one of the reasons why we get every character who's ever been in the series, and almost every stage. There's only like 6 that didn't make the cut. And of those that did, there were usually some pretty big problems as to why they couldn't make it. Especially the stages that have, like, moving hazards that get hard to navigate. I feel like that was specifically done for Little Mac, but... So Diddy seems to have good combos half the time. Teaching amiibos combos is always difficult because you can't actually teach them a specific combo. You can teach them moves that are good to use at certain times. And there's like actually a whole science as to when an amiibo will use each move when. But I cannot, for example, tell Diddy Kong to try to do a neutral air into a down air. I can only tell him that those moves are good often, and then hope that he goes for it. And even then, some advanced techniques don't translate perfectly to the amiibo. I mean, effectively, the amiibo are level 9 computers with you getting to pick the weight for their AI, which is now with artificial intelligence taking off completely. There's a whole new meaning. Alright, great combo by Diddy Kong. That's gonna land him into the tournament. And yeah. Alright, our next match is Bowser against Charizard. He shows up as Pokemon Trainer in the game. He is an actual Charizard amiibo. I guess you just kind of have to trust me on that. I'm pretty sure that the Pokemon Trainers on Pokemon, each one of them defaults to the actual amiibo they are for their default stance. But the Pokemon Trainer amiibo, because there's 4 of them, one for each figurine basic, for each player model, I guess. The Pokemon Trainer gets to pick. He might default to Squirtle. Speaking of Squirtle, here he is. 2 more blue characters. Wish I had thought about the coloring, but what can you do? It happens sometimes. Another thing to know about the Pokemon Trainer amiibo is that I do have a Squirtle, Ivysaur, and Charizard amiibo. They will all be competing for separate slots. I considered having them all fight each other for the same slot, but that just kind of gets messy. Also, especially after Ivysaur won the first 2 years in a row, I feel like it wouldn't be fair if I made him go through an extra layer of trial, and Charizard, as Squirtle, has killed himself by not recovering into the ledge correctly, even though he had like 3 shots in a row. Okay, Bowser throwing out a forward air right after the neutral air, that's something the amiibo absolutely excel at. They seem to know always exactly when they have enough time to hit you. If a normal person does that, usually what happens is you get thrown out of their move, and then you throw out an attack, and then you usually get comboed by an additional move. But the amiibo seem to just have an innate knowledge of when they can do that and get away with it. Which also means as a human, it's infuriating, since your attacks deal less damage, they deal less knockback, so they do less hit stun, the amiibo gets out of it first, and then they'll hit you back for like 15 or 30. This is something the amiibo don't particularly have to worry about, since they get the balanced stats. Squirtle barely makes that, went a little bit lower than I would probably recommend. Especially since Bowser wasn't going off stage to pressure him. Back throw, Bowser goes up through that platform. That is something to know about. Well, the side platform, there's also the one that goes along the bottom. Although, now that I think about it, I'm not entirely sure if you can go up through it. the 3 larger platforms on the stage do have solid collision, so you can't just pop up through the floor. Although on the Hazards version, you can destroy them with, well, just a couple of strong attacks, and then they become just semi-permeable platforms. Fun stuff about Skyloft. So, Charizard does have... Charizard as Ivysaur right now does have a lot of ground to make up. Just being an entire stock behind, and against a character like Bowser, Bowser is the heaviest character in the game, so he lives long. He also hits hard, because, you know, he's a heavyweight. It would be weird if he didn't. So, one false move does usually end with an early death, and since Bowser's heavy, he usually lives a little bit longer. So, Charizard, as Ivysaur in the situation, just has to play really well. And since the amiibo, as Pokemon trainer, always pick really weird times to switch which Pokemon they are, that could have been really bad for Ivysaur. For example, what you'll see most often is they'll be doing great as Charizard, and then they'll switch to Squirtle when they're at a high percent, which is kind of the opposite what you do as a player. It is, of course, an option you always have, but due to Charizard's heavy weight and good kill power, he usually excels better at the high percent than the lightweight like Squirtle. Great spike by Charizard. And the back air is going to seal his fate. We'll see him again, but we don't know if he'll make it. Bowser's the superior fire breather. Up next, we have Wario against Sheik. Yeah, it's going to be pretty interesting to see. Sheik is always a character who's, well, at least in Smash Ultimate, who struggled to find kills, and it definitely shows in the amiibo. Granted, the amiibo can get away with random smash attacks a little bit more often, since that's just how they roll. But teaching the amiibo any of Sheik's combos or kill confirms is kind of impossible. The amiibo do sometimes have some combos built into them, but in order for that to happen, it has to basically be picked one at a time by the diligent programmers at Nintendo. Well, I guess Smash Ultimate had a lot of people going into it. I believe a lot of the development was actually by Bandai Namco? Bandai Namco? I believe that's how you pronounce it. It was actually a specific team that... The team that made Smash 4 also made Ultimate. I'm sure, like, maybe some of the people changed, but for the most part it was the same. Up smash from Wario, you don't see that too often by human players. It's quite honestly a fine up smash. It's just that Wario's up tilt to up air just deals more damage. And you can also combo up tilt into waft sometimes, and sometimes you can combo up tilt into another up tilt and then start throwing in up airs. I know that personally I like to do a couple of up tilts, couple of up airs, and when I'm done I finish it with an up B, and that usually does a good amount of damage. So you can use his up smash as a vertical kill option, but he does also have other ways that don't require needing a smash attack. I mean, even then, like, oh, waft, yeah, that's a kill option. There are ways to combo into it. I don't happen to know them, even though I played Wario for a bit. Well, I guess I played every character for a little bit, but I played him more than other characters. It's a whole thing. Anyways. Now, Wario just left his bike on stage. That means he doesn't have it now, and he doesn't have a jump either, so that's actually going to get him killed. One of the bonuses in, well, any of the March Malcontent, April Anger, or May Malaise matches is that when you kill your opponent, that usually gives you just enough time for you to get one extra tick of auto heal. So you could think of it as killing your opponent gets you like an extra 5% back, which, when you think about it that way, isn't really even that much. So the third tier auto heal restores 5% every 5 seconds. The second tier only does 2.5%, so it actually doubles even though it only uses 1 extra spirit slot. Even then though, 2.5 per 5 seconds isn't that much. 5% for 5 seconds is just 1% a second. So if you were at, let's say 100, which is a pretty typical kill percent, if you're at 100%, it would take you 100 seconds to heal all that back. And when you realize that 100 seconds is 10 seconds more than a minute and a half, it kind of makes you realize how, I guess, slow it is. It's good for our purposes because it means that matches actually end. Although it does mean that for characters like Sheik, who's in this match, who usually have a little bit easier time dealing damage but a harder time finding the kill, when your opponent is auto-healing, you get stuck dealing damage all the time and never really getting to the kill stage. And Wario has killed Sheik with 2 wafts now. The non-fully charged waft does do damage and knockback, and sometimes in surprisingly large amounts, so it can be worth it to let it rip early. And in true Smash Bros. Fashion, for some reason, when you have like 90% charge, it actually does a little bit more knockback than when you have 100% charge. I kind of recommend waiting for the full waft just because you get super armor and I think it does more damage, which slightly helps with the knockback calculations. But that's just a weird trend in Smash Brothers, that things that can be charged partially always seem to get a dip in power right at the very end. I'm not sure why. My biggest guess is that it's either to like give players skill expression that if they can work with the 90% charge they can get rewarded more, or it could possibly be that they finished making the move and then realized that the fully charged version was just a little too strong, so they weakened it and then they didn't change the scaling formula. Which, believe it or not, scaling formulas are not actually something you see too much in Smash Brothers. I know you could say the standard exception of, like, damage percent calculations, you deal extra knockback if you're at a higher percent. That should count as a scaling formula. But just in a character's normal moveset, there aren't many moves that, for example, deal more damage when X condition is met. Sometimes there will be deal more damage when, like, a static thing has been achieved. Kind of like, this attack deals more damage if you have 10 nickels. No character has nickels in the game, but that's a very easy binary yes or no. You don't really get a character who has more damage for every single nickel they have. It's always just the all or nothing, do you have 10 nickels sort of deal. Which I guess is also fine, because I know I wouldn't want to have to calculate if I have 7 out of 10 percentage points of my jump meter or something, how much damage my attack's gonna do. There even are some other formulas that's not gonna kill Sheik. Sheik doesn't have a jump, barely makes it with the recovery though. That was close. Both trying to jockey for position, but it's a problem for Sheik, because if Sheik gets hit by like a random forward air, Sheik, well, not Wario's forward air, I meant forward tilt, Sheik could die being at such a high percentage, whereas Wario gets to be a lot more safe. Ooh, tried with the bouncing fish. Sheik kept her jump, she's able to make it back, does an incredibly hard tech where you drop from the ledge, grab the wall jump off of it, and make it back on stage. That's usually something people do on accident, and it's not, I don't think, particularly better than using your double jump. I suppose if you get attacked, then you would still have your double jump, but from a human perspective, it's so much harder to pull off. So Sheik has managed to even things up here. Goes for a drag down up air, but does not hit anything after it. Up air near the top, Wario's going to live. Gonna eat his bicycle, that actually will heal him a little bit, and it charges up Waft. Eating anything as Wario charges up Waft. I can't tell you the percentage it would charge up. Also, we have 10 seconds left in this fight. So, if this goes to time. We are going to play out Super Sudden Death. Wario has a Waft online. Sheik. Buzzer beater kill. We're not going to Super Sudden Death, but Sheik will be in April Anger. Up next, we have Cloud against Joker. Yes, that's right. I finally got Joker. At a reasonable market price, believe it or not. Nintendo finally reprinted it. I guess Nintendo and Atlas, but now Atlas has been bought out by Sega. Anyways, they reprinted Joker, and instead of costing 120 bucks, I got him for like 30. And then he went on the Nintendo website for 15, so I felt kind of stupid at that, but I guess whoever was selling it either got an early copy or caught wind about the price decrease. I didn't have to pay 120 though, so I'm just happy about that. These are American dollars in case anyone's viewing from, I don't know, like another country. Holding your shield against a fully charged smash attack is always risky, specifically because as you hold your shield gets smaller and the smash attack is going to be getting stronger. So it depends on the character, but sometimes you can just get your shield broken. Also, something eagle-eyed viewers might have seen is that Cloud is actually a grab-type amiibo. That is true. Most of the amiibo are neutral. Any of the new amiibo I train are always going to be neutral, and anytime I retrain an old amiibo, if they have a spirit type, I always make sure to set it back to neutral. What the spirit types do is that if you follow the spirit type effectiveness triangle of attack beats grab, grab beats shield, shield beats attack, just like in Smash Brothers, believe it or not, is that if you have a type bonus, basically, you deal 30% more damage. And that may or may not also apply to knockback. That's a formula thing I do not know off the top of my head. And if you're at a disadvantage, you do 30% less damage, and possibly knockback. This is not including the less knockback you do by dealing less damage. So, the whole reason of making all the amiibo neutral is that there's not much of a reason for them to have the type effectiveness. Originally I thought it would be cool to make it more dynamic so that people would, you know, pay attention to all the different types the amiibo had and factor that into their tournament predictions. And we have had upsets in the past where someone has one with a type disadvantage. However, it does just prove a, quite honestly, significantly large advantage in the matchup. So, currently, since almost all the amiibo are neutral, we're not going to see too many type matchups. We always do seem to see like 2 or 3 each year, at least. Ideally, the amiibo who still have non-neutral types will not have been trained. Well, they won't have been retrained, and they should be the oldest ones with training. So, assuming I'm getting better at this, Cloud makes that back with his limit break, by the way. Assuming I'm getting better at this, that we should have more neutral types over time. And nice footstool. I don't want to retrain any amiibo that is currently successful. And with how the adding a spirit to an amiibo works, I could add a spirit to an amiibo, but that will change some of its intrinsic stats. People have started to, I guess, document how exactly all of that works online, and we are already done with that match. Quick kill by Cloud. Anyways, people have started documenting online, however, it is incredibly complicated. There's a lot that goes into it, and I don't want to mess with it if I don't have to. See you next match. Alright, we've got Inkling against the Little Mac. Little Mac is probably the most noteworthy character to talk about, possibly in the entire game, just because of how unique his playstyle is of not being great in the air, but being an absolute beast on the ground. Inkling is a character who definitely excels by using her roller. It's her side B, it buries opponents, and then you can hit them with a smash attack. Little Mac would be at a disadvantage for having to jump over it. However, he does have a couple of tricks up his sleeve, like you probably just saw he used a counter there. And yeah, that killed Inkling off the side. Risky recovery. KO Punch does not kill at 0. That is something to know. It is a move with very high base knockback and very high knockback scaling. So I'm pretty sure it kills any character at 30% on a normal sized stage. And if you're not a super heavyweight, it'll usually kill a lot of characters at like 15%. And for a little back, that means like you hit him with an attack or two, usually something that combos into KO Punch, because why not? And then you kill him. Oh, he's got KO Punch again. You only lose KO Punch if you get tumbled into knockback. There is a slight grace period, like the instant you get it, so if you're caught in like a multi-hit or something, you don't instantly lose it. After like a second or two, though, you lose the grace period, and going into tumble ever makes you lose it. Although something specifically about that is that it is specifically going into your tumble animation instead of getting hit in general, which means that if Little Mac super armors through one of your attacks, kind of like he did there, all of his smash attacks have, I believe it's super armor, it might be just heavy armor. He has a lot of armor on a lot of his different things. Anyways, so if he armors through something, it doesn't count as tumble, and then he gets to keep his KO Punch. Now, this stage is actually pretty good for Little Mac. It has platforms, which, believe it or not, Mac does great on, because it's more land he can stand on. You can always try to platform camp him, but if you're trying to stay airborne, he just has more options to be close to you, but still be grounded. And of course, it's a wide stage at the bottom, which Little Mac does great at. He has a good dash speed, and he loves being on the ground and making his opponents land on him. And with the side blast zones being relatively closer to the side of the stage, ooh, that was really close. Little Mac should be able to recover as long as he doesn't get hit out of bounds. Yep. Little Mac can sort of just throw out smash attacks, and it usually works out pretty well. Any of these hitting Inkling would basically be the end of the game, and he's throwing out a bunch. And some of his moves combo into his kill moves, depending on how you land them, though. Alright, Little Mac off stage. Goes too high, he gets down smashed. He is going to lose any rage he had built up, which, if you don't know, rage basically makes you take more knockback and deal more knockback when you're at a higher percent. I think of it... Oh, and that's the game. I'll talk about rage next match, I guess. Alright, up next we've got King Dedede against Incineroar. Two heavyweights, they're going to be absolutely beating the crap out of each other. So anyways, rage. At high percents, it usually starts building up at, I think, 100. I think maybe it might actually start at like 90%. I'll have to double check the values because it might have changed slightly for Smash Ultimate. But at higher percents, you deal slightly more knockback and you take slightly more knockback. The higher percent, the more it kind of builds up. I always think of it as a definite casual player mechanic. In games before Rage was invented, which I guess would be brawling games before that, it would be possible to survive until like 200%, which is pretty high. There isn't any sort of like Smash Brothers standard... Wow, and Incineroar died for that. There's no Smash Brothers standard of, I guess, living, of when you should and should not die. And King Dedede died for that, bringing things basically back to even. As a general rule of thumb, at 100% you can start to expect to die, depending on your character's weight. If you're super light, that can go down to like 70%, especially if you're hit by like a smash attack or something. If you're heavy, then that can go up to like 150, again, depending on what you're hit by. But at those higher percents, it does, if both players are at a high percent, then people will kill to a lot more... People will get knocked off screen by a lot more attacks, which is good for casual players who do not know how to get a kill confirmed, or how to get a hard read, or... Yeah, there's a lot of things that go into it. It especially does help the people who... There seems to be a large amount of people who don't want to play with items, but they're still not great at the game. I mean, maybe I'm biased here, because I actually do like playing with items in Smash Brothers. I also enjoy playing Smash Brothers in kind of whatever context, so I don't mind often. However, there's people who, for some reason, like, they've been playing the game for, like, maybe... Okay, King Dedede lives. They've been playing the game for, like, 3 years, and they decide that they want to do the hardcore rule set. Which, you're allowed to, but it also means you'll get players who don't have... Is that going to kill them? Players who don't have a way to kill their opponent, and they're not good enough to get it often enough. And if they're playing with players of a similar skill level, then the end of matches can really drag on. Dedede has like 2 jumps left, but I don't know if he's going to make this. He has to cancel out of the super Dedede jump in order to grab the ledge. Incineroar keeps juggling him. Incineroar, when Smash Brothers basically first came out, was regarded as like the best amiibo. And I guess he kind of proved it. Especially because King Dedede has done really well in the past. Alright, last match of the video, Roy against Palutena. Roy is a character who excels incredibly well at close range. Palutena is just a good all-rounder character. Lots of great moves. I mean, I think especially great aerials. Her special moves are fine. In a competitive context, they're not as useful. But side B can kill, neutral B is a projectile. She has a reflect counter. In, you know, more serious environments, you're going to be using the reflector a lot more than the counter. And of course, a recovery that makes her turn invisible. However, it does make her a little bit more vulnerable to two-framing. I know it didn't look like it there, but she does appear and then she has to grab the ledge. It's kind of to compensate for the fact that in the middle of the teleport you can't hit her at all because she is teleporting and effectively just invisible. First kill goes to Palutena. Jumping out of Roy's range. So Roy is a very horizontal character. He has good airspeed, but low acceleration. So what that means is, well, if he's airborne, he can approach you very quickly, but he's not exactly weaving in and out of your comfort zone, or I guess your sphere of influence, or whatever you want to call it. He's also very fast on the ground. So, for example, if this stage was a little bit more flat, he'd be able to cross it faster than most other characters. And if you try to avoid him by jumping, he has a good airspeed, so he's going to still catch up to you. However, if you go really high, then he starts to struggle. He doesn't have a very high jump. Like, it's... I mean, it feels, you know, standard fare for a Smash Brothers character. But when he can go so fast horizontally, it does make his verticality feel a little bit lacking, I guess. And Palutena, as you just saw, has a really good jump, and aerial she likes to use with it. Of course, they're playing on a diagonal staircase right now, so anything goes. As I say that, they immediately move off of it, but... Roy's side B is a move you need to fear near, well, any ledge. The last hit, if... So, it's... The move's called Dancing Blade. You can angle it different directions. Anyways, if the final hit he chooses to do sideways, it has a significant amount of knockback. If it hits you at the sweet spot, then it can definitely kill. Oh yeah, neutral B in Smash Ultimate is basically lagless. It's one of the measures they did to make all those moves that people never really used more usable. So while neutral B isn't like a terrific move, like, you can now at least throw it out and not be worse off for having tried it. And honestly, it's a great bait against human players who've played older Smash games, because they will always try to punish it, and unless you're really reckless with it, you're probably not going to get punished. You can just act out of it so quickly. Alright, Roy getting caught in the Palutena blender. Alright, playing on the staircase, that's pretty risky for Roy, that puts him close to the blast zone. But he just hit Palutena with a forward tilt, and it worked for him. So, what do I know, I guess. Anyways, I hope you enjoy the episode. I'll be making more of them, so stay tuned.